Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Monday. Brian Kamenetsky joined by one of our favorite people that you can find on the Lakers part of the internet celebrating a kind of sloppy Lakers win. We'll get into all of it next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everyone for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday. No matter how or where you get your podcasts, it's always free. It's never behind a paywall because we would never do that to you. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where over 23,000 people every day waking up and wondering whether or not the Lakers can really string together the kinds of wins that they've done over the last couple of weeks, including Daman Rangula joining with Andy out on spring break. Woo! I took last week off. Andy's got a couple games, a couple days this week, which is good because I do not want to share Daman with Andy.
And neither do I. Listen, Andy tends to get in the way, so this is great.
If you are a person who follows the Lakers on social media at all, you know Daman Rangula. Great guy, awesome basketball fan, big, knowledgeable guy in the Lakers community, and we love the opportunity to get him on. And so I'm excited. The Lakers, Daman, we got a lot of stuff to get into, including a historic night from LeBron, the return of Gabe Vincent, a winning Lakers team that still can't seem to go anywhere in the Western Conference standings. But they didn't ruin Easter. Like, first and foremost, the Lakers got out to a big lead and 17-0 on Sunday afternoon in Brooklyn in a game against a bad Nets team. And I cannot be the only one who still in the back of my mind was a little worried they were going to do something stupid in this game. And that to me is sort of the story of this Lakers team.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There, you really got to see like the way the Lakers showed up tonight, the way LeBron locked in. Like, I know that he didn't have all of his threes early in the game. He kind of went on a barrage later, but the energy that he brought to this game set the tone for the team. But you're so right. Like, just the way the season has gone, we're just, every time we're just waiting. We're like, okay, when will this be a single digits? When will be this? I mean, I feel like that's a little bit of maybe what the NBA is like, where,
oh yeah,
when you go up to like such a big lead like that, there's just like a human nature element. And obviously the other team can string together some threes and bring the gaps down. But there's something particular about this Lakers team that you just were not expecting them to hold on the way they did. And LeBron did LeBron things.
Yeah. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, and again, Lakers 116-104 was the final, but it really wasn't that close. They were up by 26 at one point. I think Brooklyn got it to within 9 once. It might have been 11. I wrote in the write-up it was 9, but if it was 11, sue me.
No, I did get to single digits.
And every time they did it, the Lakers would push back. Like, they can, if you look at the spread on like the ESPN box score, like the Lakers, it's a big gap the entire way up and down. And the luxury of going up by 26 is you can give up a 13-2 run. It doesn't really matter.
Yep.
It was turnovers that did it. They got so sloppy in the third quarter, and that's the thing. It's like you have this trouble where if you break down the Lakers' record over the last 3 weeks, it's quite good. If you break down their record against the best teams in the league, it's quite good. There's just that lack of belief, and I'm wondering if we'll ever get there as fans, as media, as whatever, kind of believing in what they do. But if they get there, and it seems like they might be, Daman, if they get there, none of what we think matters anyway.
So I think the way it's interesting because I found myself as we approach the playoffs comparing last year's team to this year's team in a lot of ways to see, okay, this team is clicking. The record is getting better. Things are getting serious. Everybody around the league is locking in. So we're kind of really seeing which teams were kind of fluky, which teams are actually kind of have some depth to them. And There's just one thing that has bothered me from the jump from this season, and for people who follow me on Twitter, it might be like a little bit of beating the same horse, but I, there's a philosophical difference with the coaching staff this season, the way they've attacked this entire season, that just gives me pause at every jump. And I'll give you a perfect example. Even with all the caveats, Jackson Hayes was not available today. Christian Wood has been hurt. Vando obviously has been hurt. When Gabe Vincent entered this game, he entered with D'Angelo Russell, Spencer Dinwiddie, Torian Prince, Gabe Vincent. That was the 4 guard lineup. And when you heard them in the offseason talking about the roster and talking about their style, their vision of doing a 5-out sort of offense, obviously when teams go into the offseason, they have targets in mind. And obviously I think the Lakers target idea was, well, we can't out physical the Denver Nuggets, so we will try to spread them out. And other teams, I think the Warriors also kind of believe that, and that's the mentality they brought into the season.
Right, because the shooting was a problem last year. There's no question.
Right. I still just have such a philosophical disagreement with that approach. Going back to the championship year, they've sliced away at that big, brutish kind of basketball every season. I feel like they keep wanting to go a different direction, and I've disagreed with it every single time. That is what I keep coming back to with this team. When push comes to shove, does the coaching staff still philosophically believe that we're going to beat teams by, spreading out and shooting and doing all that? And I just fundamentally disagree. And the one optimistic point that somebody could point out to me is, hey, Rui Hachimura and Austin Reeves and these guys are now integrated in the starting lineup. They've put enough minutes together. They've put enough data together. And Vando is going to come back, hopefully. Once all those things happen, they'll go to that. My pushback to that optimism is I still do not believe I am still bothered by wasting half this season with Rui, D'Lo, and Austin Reeves at different points in the doghouse. What is the coaching staff philosophically believing? Because I also don't want to sit here and say the coaches are dumb. I obviously the coaching staff knows way more about basketball than I'll ever know. But what's clear to me is they have a very clear philosophy that I happen to disagree with. And that's where I kind of stop and I say this year's team potential only. I think their ceiling is higher than last year's team, but I am more philosophically aligned with what last year's team was and the way the coaching staff saw last year's roster.
It's funny because they've arrived to the place where Rui plays the minutes that he's going to play, and they're big and they're letting him go on offense. And look, like they needed him to rebound on Sunday, and you know what he did? He rebounded, and like that. The criticism I've been knocked by a lot of the fans of the show and viewers and all that, and I don't think it's unfair for. I don't know what the right balance is between Rui struggled at the beginning of the season between injuries, and I think his performance wasn't great. Is the performance not great because the role is changing, or is the role changing because the performance isn't great? It's probably a little bit of both, but they do seem to have settled into 35 minutes a night for Rui.
And I will say
15 to 18, matchup dependent. Sometimes it makes more sense to play more. 15 to 18 for Torian Prince, like getting that right. And the problem is, and I agree with you, is those 50 games where it's like, what are we doing here? And I am very deferential to coaches for the reasons you're pointing out here. Like, what are we doing? Because this just seems like the hardest way. So when you change it to doing it in a way that does make sense to people, nobody trusts what you're doing. And I don't know if the Lakers as a team fully trust what they're doing, or maybe like athletes are so good at compartmentalizing stuff that they can set things aside. And this becomes like, what if the Lakers, what if the Lakers make another run to the Western Conference Finals? What do you do with Darvin Ham? Like there are some fascinating
Yeah,
questions
yeah.
about
Yeah.
what's coming for if the Lakers lose in the first round, they push Denver to 7 games. Like this is all completely fascinating to me. And we'll try to maybe touch back to this before the end of the show. But we got to get into LeBron, because what he did on Sunday was not just, hey, 39 years old, like all that stuff, like remarkable. It was just flat remarkable, especially when you compare it to the kind of player that he was at the beginning of his career. And we will explain all that next. First, do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. What is Prize Picks, you might be asking? Well, it's America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. The easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less than on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. March is over. We're into April now. But the biggest moments in college basketball tip off in the month of April. We're talking a fantastic women's and men's college basketball tournament. The big teams, particularly on the women's side, it is just set out to be an awesome finish to the tournament. You get on the playoff action, you win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during basketball's postseason. That's the NBA as well. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Turn $10 into $1,000 with basketball, hockey, and college basketball entries today on Prize Picks. Again, America's #1 fantasy sports app. How do you do it? You download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. So LeBron James, if you missed the game and you missed the box score, finished with 40 points, 13 of 17 shooting. He had 7 rebounds. He had 5 assists. He was a plus 22 on the afternoon. And what was particularly remarkable about this, Daman, was that he was 9 of 10 from 3-point range, which is very good. 9 of 10 for anybody is outstanding. But the idea that LeBron James would be the kind of guy who would be hitting 9 of 10 from 3-point range at any point in his career, let alone, and like when the Lakers needed it. I mean, Brooklyn got it into, I think within 9, it was 2 LeBron threes that pushed the thing back up to a comfortable margin for the Lakers. And that was pretty much it. Like this part of his game as becoming a very reliable 3-point shooter over the last few seasons is just remarkable to me, how he has evolved as the game has evolved as well.
I mean, this is one of those things where you don't want to just keep using the same cliches, but I mean, it really is you cannot take LeBron James for granted. And in the thick of the season, and you're following game to game, and you're breaking down, okay, this matchup, and this is how this game went, and these defensive coverages, you don't spend enough time just zooming out and being like, my God, this is like, we're not going to see this again. We will not see this again, or we should not expect to ever see this again. And the your framing is exactly right. His adaptability through eras. The only way a player like him can stay in the league, not only in the league, but stay at the top of the league as long as he has, is that he has adapted to each era of basketball physically, mentally, spiritually, all of that stuff. He has, I mean, you can tell a solid chunk of NBA history through just watching his game and the evolution of his game.
I saw that stat where, like, if something like LeBron has played against or with something like 23% of the league, like, over the course of league history, some just staggering number. But like, and he talked about it afterwards, like, beyond the longevity, it is that question of eras. And last year, the jumper wasn't there, as you alluded to, but before that, 36%, 36.5%.
Yeah.
35 the year before that. And it's like, this was a guy who, and he talked about it after the game, who defenses would leave open, who you were trying to get early in his first Cleveland stint. The goal was to make LeBron a three-point shooter, because anywhere else on the floor, he was going to kill you.
Yep.
And to hear him as a student of the game talk about the way, like this is a three-point shooting league now. You have to be able to do that and take advantage of the defense is still, as he said, like, this is often what they want me to do. And I think there is an acknowledgement there too, that if I'm going to be a guy who can put the ball on the floor at 39 and get to the rim in the half court, and the break, forget it. Nobody's getting in. That is a business decision that nobody chooses the wrong side of. But in the half court, if LeBron's going to be able to put the ball on the floor and get to the rim, he needs to be able to shoot the ball too.
Yeah.
And that acknowledgement, like that, I know he's LeBron James. That requires a tremendous amount of work to be able to do that with your game. And
I do think that this is where, when you think of what LeBron has put together, it's both work ethic and IQ together, right? Because you could work very, very, very hard and still not know what exactly you should be working on. Like, he's been very deliberate about what he works on, why he works on it, and how it translates to what the team needs, what the era dictates, what the rules dictate, all of that stuff. And I think it's a perfect example. And we were talking about comparing last year's team and this year's team. One of the biggest differences, and this is big time on the optimism side, is last year LeBron James came back for the playoffs. He was kind of nursing an injury, and the one thing that he did not have last playoffs was a jumper. And going into this playoffs, he's shooting as well as he shot with the Lakers. And so I do think that is going to be an element of challenging opposing defenses, to where, it is almost always still going to be the right call to give LeBron space, because you don't want him attacking. And if LeBron can make them pay, it does elevate the ceiling of this team.
I am convinced. We'll get into Gabe Vincent here in a second, but I am. This is what I think is so hard for fans, is because on the one hand, they are 9th in the Western Conference. You can't gloss over the fact, like, this is not a team that is like zooming up the standings. On the other, I mentioned it before, they have one of the best records and point differentials in the league against the league's best teams. They are 9 games over 500, and good God, had better be 11 by the end of this road trip.
Yep.
They're only a game now behind Sacramento, 2 in the loss column. Obviously need to pass them clean, but they're only a game and a half behind Phoenix too. So Sacramento is playing as we're recording. So we'll see what happens with that game, but they still have a chance, particularly with the schedule that the Suns play, to move up to 8. And that is obviously a huge deal if they can manage to pull that off. But like, they're obviously too good to, like, they could finish 12 or 13 games over 500. That's not a garbage team in this conference, particularly when you consider that stretch they had following the in-season tournament.
Yep.
It's like, even Denver, like, I wouldn't pick them to beat the Nuggets. I wouldn't pick anybody to beat the Nuggets. But like, is there any team in the West, individual series, 7 games, that you don't think the Lakers can beat? I don't think there is. Like, they could beat the Clippers, they could beat the Timberwolves, they could beat the Thunder. Like, whether you pick them or not, it's not like a long shot. That's what makes this team so difficult to quit.
It's why I can't. I was about to say, I can't quit them. That's exactly why I can't quit them. It's like, there's been multiple points this season where they put together stretches of games where I'm like, get out of my life. I don't need this. Like, just I please be like the 12th seed so I can enjoy the playoffs in peace. But then you watch them on different stretches, and you watch them at the opening of this Nets game, and you're like, bring it on, and let's go. Like, we'll take on the world. I do. It is interesting. This is, again, goes back to my philosophical view of the way the Lakers should be built. And I do look at, I think that Minnesota and Denver both present unique challenges to the Lakers, because they're the only teams now, because of the way the Lakers roster is set, that they can challenge them physically, size-wise, in a way that the only reason you'd favor the Lakers over OKC or give them a real chance is because you can take advantage of OKC not having enough size.
Right. It's Chet, and I mean the Lakers have just played. Other than the only time that the Thunder have beat up on the Lakers was the second night of a back to back. I forget
Yep.
who wasn't playing in that game, but Lakers missing one player among others. And like they got stomped, but it was in the middle of a road trip. Second night of back to back, they got beat
Right.
up. That happens.
In terms
But
of matchup, though, you can make the case, right?
yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yep.
they have no answer for Anthony Davis, and they don't really have an answer if Rui's around, if Vanderbilt is around to be able to move around and play some of that defense. It is, you talk about like that bully ball thing, and I don't know if the coaching staff is adapting to reality or getting away from what works, because I mean it's kind of a flaw of the construction of the roster that they went in with Jackson Hayes. I think they hoped that the Christian Wood thing would shore up their ability to play bigger, and it just hasn't worked. And then he got hurt. Hayes,
Yep.
by the way, didn't play on Sunday either. We got a little glimpse early of Colin Castleton. We were in the Colin Castleton business for like 3 minutes.
Yep.
And so you
But so,
combine
Brian,
that with
what I think I've come around to, I agree it's like a flaw, and I agree that maybe the coaching staff isn't reacting. But my pushback and what I actually have landed on is maybe it's not a flaw. Maybe the coaching staff is doing exactly what it believes it should do, and the roster is built exactly like they want it to be built.
might have been,
And
but
this is
I just will never know. There's a
philosophical.
counterfactual there where Rui is healthy all year, Vanderbilt is healthy all year. Christian Wood is good, and we see because there have been moments where they had guys and they just overwhelmed with size. And we'll talk about this next. Gabe Vincent played. You mentioned that lineup that they had; it was really small, and they've had a lot of 3-guard lineups, which, by the way, have worked really well with Dinwiddie, Reeves, and D'Lo. But some of that, and it, oh my God, fans, because of the PTSD from last year, you see 3 guards on the floor and they immediately freak out. You see 4, like the internet almost broke even on Easter Sunday. But where are your best players? It's Jared Vanderbilt's presence shouldn't mean as much as it does for any
Yep.
team.
Yep,
But like
yep.
not just what he does literally himself, but the way he balances lineups. That's what I mean when there's like a flaw in the roster is no contending team should be that dependent on Jared Vanderbilt, but this team
Completely
is.
agree.
Let's talk about Gabe Vincent because he returned to the lineup, and I would love to hear your thoughts on what the heck the Lakers are going to do with him, because it's not very cut and dry. We'll get into it next. Locked On Lakers brought to you by Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, live games, highlights, in-depth analysis, all that stuff. You can get it on Fire TV. It offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TVs and movies and TV episodes, I should say, as well as free and live TV. This is what we did with our kids with their TV when they had a stupid TV. It was a dumb TV and it needed help. So that's why we were using the Fire TV stick. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV lets you dive into all the games and game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest everything in the world of sports, whether that's March Madness, the NBA, Major League Baseball, and everything else. Not to mention great news, entertainment, travel, cooking videos, anything you want, you find it on Fire TV. Fire TV channels, and you can even find it through your Alexa devices. So if you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me here. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. Again, Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. So Gabe Vincent returns to the lineup. He plays 14 minutes, which quite frankly was a little bit more than I thought he would. 14 minutes. He was 1 of 4 from the floor. He accounted for the only bucket the Lakers got off the bench, which is probably not something we'll have a chance to get into for this show, but I wish it was. 2 points from bench, not going to cut it. But anyway, he did return, and you could see both how he could be helpful and how the challenge, Dominic, of figuring out what to do with him now that you have Spencer Dinwiddie is a tough one for the coaching staff.
It's another guard, right? And you're right to point to the Spencer Dinwiddie thing, because Spencer Dinwiddie has come in, and I mean, whenever there's these buyout situations, there's obviously communication about what the role would be, and that's an evaluation point for a free agent like Spencer Dinwiddie making a decision. And so I would expect Spencer Dinwiddie to expect that he will have some consistent role. And so we're back to our conversation. And I know it sounds repetitive, but this has been the conversation all season that I've at least been having in terms of thinking about this team and the optimal setup. But we're about to integrate another guard.
Yep.
And so today, to as we opened, the lineup that Darvin brought Gabe Vincent into was with D'Lo, Gabe Vincent, Taurean Prince, and Spencer Dinwiddie. And I was just like, this is exactly what I'm worried about. Is that's like the default button that this coaching staff pushes, is we're gonna go all skill, all guards, and we'll just spread them out and have this dynamic offense. And the reality is that the league is moving back towards size. Size is coming back into fashion. And I the thing is, I still have hope for a player like Gabe Vincent. I am a big believer in a playoff type player, a battle tested player. It's different in the playoffs, so different in the playoff. The difference between a regular season game and a playoff game, the gap in 2024 is like astronomically wide. So when you have a player like Gabe Vincent, who has proven to have big moments in big games, I do want to try to figure out a way to integrate him. And I know he played more today than people may have expected, like you said, but I do think that there's such a small runway between now and the playoffs.
Yep.
It may be necessary to even have Gabe Vincent as a viable option in the playoffs, that they might have to accelerate a little bit and maybe expand on his role more than they typically would have, just to see if they can get him in game shape, get enough reps in to where he can be a viable go-to option. And maybe in the playoffs, he is not an everyday player, or he's a situational player, matchup.
Yeah, it's really hard to play four guards.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, I think that should be a non-option in the playoffs, but I am still bracing myself and expecting that there will be some four guard experimentation that will fail, and then then they won't go back to it. I am fully expecting this to happen, and I'm fully expecting it to happen multiple times. But then hopefully, yes, they settle on not doing it again.
Right.
You can hear in my voice, I'm not happy about this, but I expect it.
This is why I talked about this at the beginning of the year, and again, it has less to do with people like you and me who can scream and yell at our TVs, and more to do with in the most important moments. Because like right now, I feel like the vibe is pretty good. The Lakers are winning. Everybody is like, you know what? There's no flipping time for us to get caught up in like, do we trust Darvin? Do we not? Like, we got to go play. Darvin, I think, has relented in some of the stuff. Like Rui, you could tell everybody was like, Rui needs to be on the floor more. Whether saying it fairly explicitly or not, and he is. And
by the way, interestingly, at the time, AD and LeBron were basically explicitly saying it without saying his name.
Right, exactly. And like, Prince, who I feel terrible. He's sort of he's not played well of late, but he was playing pretty well for a lot of the season. And it's not his fault.
Exactly.
That Darvin was playing him too much. Exactly. So he wouldn't do anything wrong. He's not going to be like, when Darvin says, Taurean, you're back in. He's really, no, Darvin, really, I've been in there too much. You need to play something. That's not, no, he goes in and plays. He's doing the best he can.
Yep.
That wasn't his fault. But like, he has played less. We have seen less of Cam Reddish. He's back from injury, did not play. I mean, he played about a minute and a half of garbage time and seemed very disinterested. Like he barely moved in that. But like Cam Reddish isn't playing very much. Like stuff like that is leveling
Let
out.
me ask you.
But I do wonder.
Let me ask you a question on this.
Sure.
So let's say Vando is healthy and back. Do you think there is any circumstance in which Darvin Ham would go through a playoff game and DNP Torian Prince?
No, yes, but no.
No, I don't think so.
I have a very vivid imagination. I've worked in media and as a writer, and I have children I engage with in creative play. I mean, my mind is capable of thinking of a lot of different things. I do think it is unlikely just because he does fill a slot in terms of 6'7" guy who can shoot, has at least the will attempt to give you some degree of defensive versatility. But this is why the Vanderbilt thing matters, because part of the reason Reddish plays over somebody like Max Christie, who I am not as much of a stand for, but I get it, is because Reddish is 40 pounds heavier. Like he's just a much larger person, and that allows certain defensive matchups, despite the fact that I have been a Cam Reddish skeptic for a long time now and never really understood what I call the Reddish fetish that the Lakers seem to have had for him. But like that's part of why Torian played a lot at the beginning of the year, is because he was the only 6'7" player that they had access to. Right. And so, some of this is context. No, I don't think he would get DNPs, but I don't think he'll play more than 15 minutes a night, 10 minutes a night, unless he's just burying 3 after 3. But which like this is why you need Vanderbilt, because you have the ability then to have another body who is larger with some versatility, so you're not forced into some of these 3, or if you have a healthy Vanderbilt when you're seeing 4 guard lineups, they should escort Darvin away from the bench in the middle of the game. But I will say the only other thing on the 3 guard lineups, at least, is that it is different because none of their guards are little. Vincent is the smallest one. And so when you play Dinwiddie at 6'5", right, Dinwiddie at 6'5", Russell at 6'4", I believe, but with really he's got long arms for 6'4", and Reeves is 6'5". These are not little guards. And so you're not doing 6'1", 6'2", and then 6'3". Like that's, so it is a little bit different. But I understand the value of trying to get Vincent back into the lineup, and this is what these Raptors and Washington, like why you need to get big leads in these things, so you can afford to let him play a little bit, because you can't screw around, can't muck around with this stuff at this point. They're not, if they were 5th or 4th or 3rd or something in the conference, we don't care where we play and all that. They don't have that luxury anymore. It's like, it's good to have him back, but you don't trust the addition, like the ability of the staff to ignore this potential complication, because they've wanted to try to make Vincent work, because he is, I think Dinwiddie is here in part because they didn't think Vincent was going to be able to play again.
I agree,
or they were worried. And so now he's back. You still have Dinwiddie. And what do? Do you then say, Gabe, sorry, man, just wait till next year. We promise, you'll be here. Spencer Dinwiddie probably won't be. And that's where that first 50 something games of what the heck. And what I was going to say, like, do you believe that in moments of real high leverage intensity, that that the players fully believe that Darvin and the staff will pull the right strings, as he often did in the run last year in the playoffs? I don't know if that faith has been fully restored.
I don't think so either. And I think that, again, why I point to philosophical, what the coaching staff seems to philosophically believe, because I think in those exact moments, that's what you default to. You're just like, you stick to your guns. And by the way, I think coaches should. As whoever the head coach is for the Lakers, they need to, in those moments, go with their gut, with what they believe. That is their job. That is what they're there to do. We judge them on the results, but So I philosophically believe that this coaching staff will still believe that going smaller and playing a more dynamic, skill-heavy roster or lineup is the way to go, and that is why, despite I I have higher hopes for this team than last year's team that already made the Western Conference Finals, I believe that philosophical difference in of opinion between me and them is why I am more down on them and why I
Right.
think that they will, they're more vulnerable to losing before that kind of Denver matchup.
Yeah, it's gonna be fascinating to watch how this ends. The Western Conference is just
The
so
playoffs are gonna be
brutal.
outrageous. Yeah.
So brutal. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 23,000 subscribers. Leave questions, leave comments. So excited and thankful to have Daman on the show today. We appreciate him taking the time. Aaron Larsoul is going to join us tomorrow.
Ooh.
He will be honest with every single one of you about what he's thinking about this team and everything going on with it as they finish up the road trip. Thank you again so much for coming on. It's a ton of fun. Let's do it again. Find a time that works for you, and we'll make it happen. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see everybody tomorrow. Andy always hits the buttons, Dom, and so I got to find the right one that we're supposed to end the show on. Is it this one? It is. We'll see everyone tomorrow.